Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of S4. You might be asking, who's talking to me right now? This is Maleficent. I am standing in for Stephen today on a new episode of S4 where we are going to be talking about the AI doc, How I Became an Apocaloptimist. This film was released on March 27th, 2026, and it was directed by Daniel Roher and Charlie Tyrell. And it's essentially a film about the existential risks of AI and what our future is going to look like with AI in it. It was distributed by Universal and Focus Features. And in my opinion, the film rates around a 7. Stephen and I slightly disagree on this. He gives it a 6, but we're very, very close in this. So, as far as the backdrop is concerned, it is really not about the backdrop or the lighting or the staging. It is a film where they are doing interviews. And so we have just a plain gray backdrop with a rotating barrage of musical chairs. The people are sitting in and they're talking to us about some real life questions that you yourself might be asking about AI right now. And I love the fact that the director of the film, Daniel, is really in the film himself. You're going to see him throughout the film asking these questions and talking about his motivations for making this picture, which really kind of stems from the fact that he's starting a family. And he has a new child coming into the world, and he wants to know what that world is going to look like for him. And he's got anxiety surrounding that, and he's trying very hard to figure out the answers to some of these key questions that you might be asking yourselves. He's asking questions like, what is AI? Should I have kids right now? What is the future going to look like for them? Should I be optimistic or pessimistic about what's to come? What does the future hold? Is everything going to be okay? You know, any time in our history that we've had great advancements, it also comes coupled with some great risks. If you look back on our past, you look at the Renaissance, you look at the Industrial Revolution, you look at the rollout of the internet, all of these things have drastically impacted the way that we view our lives, the way that we live our lives, how much time we have to do different things, how we spend our time. And like anything, with any kind of great advancement, it comes with great risk. Spider-Man says it best. He says, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's what we're talking about right now in this film. So, this film is talking about where artificial intelligence is going to take us. And it is a huge risk. It could go amazing or it could go drastically wrong. And we are not the only country who is trying to get there. So, just like the space race, there is a balance that they're trying to find between creating something safely and creating something first. And that's a little scary. And that is what this movie is kind of revolving around. It's a turning point for humanity. It's a progression of humanity. And what is that going to look like for his kid? There are a lot of interviews in this film. That's primarily what we're going to be talking about. There are a lot of leading experts that are coming on, kind of talking about their perspective on these new advancements, where they're going to take us, what it's going to look like. And I think, one of my favorite things about how this film rolls out is that the underlying concerns that the director has about where we're going are so poignant. He is very concerned about what the future is going to look like for his kid. And he is trying to find a way to figure out what his kid's future is going to look like. He does these amazing animated drawings of like him and his wife and real conversations that they're having together about his concerns about the future and how it's impacting his mental health. And I really do love that about this film because I feel like that today mental health care sometimes has a stigma and people don't give it um, the the actual validity and concern that it deserves. I feel like this film talks about anxiety in a way that makes sense, and it's probably an underlying anxiety that a lot of us have and we're concerned to talk about, and he talks about it in a way that makes it perfectly okay. It makes sense, and it it's very relatable the way that he explains what he's going through as a soon-to-be father, and I really love that about this movie. Um, I love the fact that there are no real actors in this film. It's real people who are talking about real things that are going on in our lives right now. I mean, there are cute little outtakes, where they're asking, "Hey, is it okay if I drink this beverage while I'm talking to you?" I mean, you can definitely see how the director included things to let you know that these are real people talking about their real feelings about what's happening in the world today and surrounding AI. And I think that you're going to get some real benefit from listening to these experts explain both, the hopes they have for where it can take us and the concerns they have for what can happen if we're not responsible with it. You know, it's a very real film with some very real world consequences if we're not responsible about how we move forward. Um, he's asking, should I have kids? I mean, think about that. He's asking, is this a good time in the world to have kids? And he gets answers on both ends of the spectrum. Yeah, it's a great time to have kids, or I would be terrified to have a kid right now because of the uncertainty that I feel. So, I mean, there there is a lot of turmoil going on in this decision. Um, I don't think that this is necessarily a film for kids, but it's definitely a film about kids. Is it the right time to have kids? What can we foresee as the future for our kids? It's not really surrounding drugs, alcohol, and violence at all, but it is talking about, the future of humanity and whether or not we're going to have one and what it's going to look like with the inclusion of AI. So, as far as whether or not you should see this film, I definitely think it's worth watching. I mean, I think that anything out there that is thought provoking and makes you think, makes you laugh, makes you cry, like if you do all of these things every day, isn't it a good day? Isn't that what being human is about? Like to be able to feel the spectrum of emotions, and I think this film gives you that. I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'm not going to go on further, but I really do think it's worth watching. It's going to make you think. It's going to make you it's going to make you contemplate what's next for us and where AI can take us, and I think that was the point. So, I definitely recommend seeing this episode. Um, we're seeing this film, and that is the end of S4 See or Skip. So Maleficent says, see it. I'll talk to you later. Bye, y'all.